Welcome back to Tech Garage presented by Advance Auto Parts. Now the axle job, that was pretty straightforward, but that axle nut you saw, it's pretty extreme torque. Well, I got a little helper here. He can use this ratchet, make it easier for him. Nah, I think we'll watch him sweat as he starts to reassemble it.
Well, I did loosen one more bracket here with the brake hose and the ABS sensor just to give us a little more travel. We've got the new axle. We came in up over the sway bar, over the link. Don't want to damage that boot. Rolled it down in. She's sitting in place, ready to go. Now we're going to work on this marriage of the splines and a little tilt up, get the right angle, and work it. There we go. Now, I go ahead and get the axle nut on. New washer, new nut. We're going to hold that in place. Then we're going to have to swing this whole assembly up, get this upper ball joint back in place so that we can get the mounting bolts back at the back done. Sit up on top of the shock mount, roll the assembly back up. I like to hold it with my knee here in place. Drop this in. Now, you need either a second set of hands here or a good pry bar to help your cause. I'm going to come in from the top, get this rolled in. I'm going to get a nut on it right here, hold this back together. Now, mounting bolts back at the flange, back into the differential. That's the next step. Torque matters. Follow your torque specs all the way around. But if you want to see how a CV axle and joint works in action, John's got that.
Drive axle in action. I'm going to push the button here. You see it actually running. Inside here is that plunge joint we talked about earlier. On this model, it's actually splined right into the transaxle. Later, we'll see our RSX works the same way. Then it transmits the energy outside here to this outside joint. This is the fixed joint right here. You can see it spinning. Now that fixed joint has to go through the whole turn ratio. You can see it as I move it to the left and to the right. Now think about that. That thing has to turn and the plunge joint has to plunge up and down to compensate for suspension movement. Well, there's a drive line in action. Brian's moving a little faster than this drive axle. Let's check in with him.
Okay, we're down to the final 2 bolts on the inner flange. There's 5. Now, impact gun, we're going to run them down. I'm going to come back, tighten them again manually. But to make this easy, just roll it around. You have good access. Here's number 5. Run it down. And we'll come back and finish those off in just a minute. Now, the next step is ball joint reassembly, tie rod end, your friend, the pry bar. Get up here, a little down pressure. We're going to go ahead and run this nut, which I've got started. There we go. A little down pressure. This too will get torqued. We can certainly get it snug and everything in place. Okay, work that down good and snug. Same thing down at the tie rod. A little bit of down pressure. Switch sockets on our impact gun. Make this easier. We're a big fan of mechanical advantage. Down pressure. Okay, we're all set. Now the final step is this axle nut. Now we checked with MotoLogic. This calls for 177 foot-pounds of torque in 2 stages, 58 pounds first, and then button it up at 177. That's heavy lifting. So we're going to run this down with the impact gun and get it close. Now I'm going to actually switch over to the torque wrench. So this is a pretty simple and straightforward system. You know, something to consider, this is an oblong nut. That's what holds your axle in place. If yours doesn't have that, check the spec and make sure if you need to spike that nut and create an inset there, that's what's going to hold it on. But check yours, it may be different. Pretty simple, straightforward system, but it's a lot different on a front-wheel drive transaxle. John's going to show you how that works on the RSX when we come back. So stay with us on Tech Garage, presented by Advance Auto Parts.